5 terrifying true stories of a haunted cabin in the sinister forest. Exposed secrets revealed. Claire's heart raced as the old cabin emerged from the ghostly shadows of the forest. The air felt thick, oppressive, as if the trees themselves bore witness to unspeakable horrors. This would be a weekend away, a chance to escape the chaos of their suburban life. Or so she hoped. The cabin, worn and lifeless, appeared more like a mausoleum than a family retreat. Vines crept along the windows, and the porch sagged under the weight of silence. Claire took a deep breath, trying to shake the unsettling feeling clawing at her gut. Jason, her husband, was unpacking the car, oblivious to the gloom surrounding them. Emma and Noah dashed toward the imposing woods. Their laughter echoed eerily among the trees. "Stay close," Claire called out, her voice trembling. She felt the weight of her grandmother's warnings echoing in her mind. Tales of dark spirits and the lost ones. Those who wandered into the woods and never returned. She knew it was just folklore, but there was something wrong. A whisper of dread curling around her thoughts as the sun dipped below the horizon and shadows lengthened. Claire watched the townspeople with thinly veiled suspicion. Their wary glances pierced her like arrows, and half-formed words about the lost ones flitted through the chilly air. An old man muttered about the woods at the edge of town, a place where children once played but never returned. Just the tales of old folks, Jason grinned, brushing it off. But Claire felt unease coil around her heart. The townspeople's eyes shone with a knowing that chilled her blood. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue as night draped itself over the cabin. Claire convinced herself it would be fine. The family gathered around the fire, but the shadows that danced in the flickering light had a life of their own. Soft murmurs from the forest drifted toward them, almost like a song, but something about it felt wrong. Suddenly, Jason stood up. "I'll get more firewood," he said. "We'll need it for the night." Claire's stomach lurched. She watched him disappear into the dark, her heart hammering wildly in her chest. Time ticked by, each second stretching into an eternity. The children snuggled close, their innocent chatter faltering as they sensed the rising tension in the air. Claire gripped her phone, instinctively searching for comfort in the glowing screen, but there was no signal. Darkness seeped into the cabin, swallowing their warmth. Hours passed and Jason didn't return. Panic clawed at her throat, choking back her thoughts. She fought to quell the rising tide of dread, her instincts screaming that something was terribly wrong. What if he was lost among the trees, the very woods her grandmother warned her about? Panic surged as she grabbed the flashlight and rushed to the door. Outside, the woods loomed like an endless abyss, each gust of wind carrying whispers of warning. Shadows flitted just out of sight, and Claire hesitated, breath caught in her throat. What if Jason didn't want to be found? Or worse, what if he was already one of the lost ones? As her feet carried her toward the unnerving darkness, she realized she might not be the only one looking for answers. Claire's heart thundered in her chest, each beat reverberating against the impending dread thickening the night air. The beam of her flashlight cut through the shadows, uncertain and quaking. The dark forest loomed before her, an insatiable entity swallowing every trace of light and warmth. "Jason!" she called, her voice trembling across the whispering trees. It was swallowed by thick silence, as if the woods themselves conspired to keep him hidden. The eerie, rhythmic rustling of branches overhead felt like 1,000 unseen eyes watching her. Hungry and waiting, she stepped onto the damp leaves, her feet sinking slightly with every cautious movement. The chill gnawed at her skin, and memories of her grandmother's tales twisted in her mind. What had started as childhood fears now felt real. Anxiety dripped from her body. A sharp, imploring instinct urged her to turn back, yet dread fueled her forward. "Mommy, I'm scared. came a trembling voice behind her. It was Emma, clutching Noah's hand. Their wide eyes reflected the tiny beam of light, filled with innocence but also echoing a fear that twisted Claire's heart. "It's okay, honey. We're just looking for your dad," Claire reassured. But the tremor in her voice undercut her bravado. She couldn't shake the thought that perhaps they were not simply searching for Jason but chasing something darker. Something hidden in the depths of the forest. As they ventured deeper, the whispers intensified, weaving through the woods like tendrils of smoke. It wasn't just the wind. Voices murmured snippets of forgotten stories, tugging at Claire's thoughts. And then she heard it, a low, guttural sound that flowed through the trees. It was like the forest was humming a tune, sinister and haunting, calling her to something unseen. Emma clutched Claire tighter. "Mommy, what is that?" There was an urgency in her voice, innocence clashing against sharpening awareness. "Nothing, sweetheart," Claire said, but even she could sense the tension coiling around them. Her flashlight flickered, and her breath quickened. The surrounding darkness felt alive, pulsing with an unseen energy that made her skin crawl. The deeper they pushed into the woods, the more the sensation grew, an overwhelming feeling of being pursued. Shadows darted just beyond the edge of her vision, revealing figures that danced on the periphery, teasing her sanity. Claire stumbled on a root, catching herself just in time, but the forest didn't forgive her distraction. The whispers amplified, spilling from the trees, urging her to listen, to remember. "Mommy, I want to go back," Noah whimpered, pulling at her sleeve. Fighting a surge of panic, Claire's resolve hardened. "We have to find your father," she urged gently, though uncertainty sank its teeth deep into her. Every instinct screamed danger, inciting visions of her children forever losing their father to whatever lurked in this forsaken realm. Suddenly, a scream pierced the night. It cut through her horror like a knife, and Claire recognized it, Jason's voice, filled with raw terror. It echoed off the trees, an unearthly sound that chilled her bones. "Jason!" she screamed, her heart plummeting to her gut. "Mommy!" Emma cried, her small hands trembling in fear. Time warped, stretching into an agonizing void. Each second felt infinite as Claire's mind raced with desperate possibilities. No longer were they simply searching. They were now entwined in a relentless nightmare. She glanced at her children and found strange resolve flaring within her. They had come this far. Jason was out there, in danger, and they would face whatever haunted the woods together. But as she steeled her heart, a shadow loomed closer, distinct and burning with intent. It hovered just beyond the reach of her flashlight beam. What was it? The forest seemed alive, drawing nearer, almost waiting for her next move. Claire took a breath, ready to confront the darkness. But in that moment, the piece she thought was resting just out of reach slipped further away, leaving only uncertainty and the echo of their collective fear in the suffocating air. And just then, new whispers entwined with Jason's scream, hinting that he was not alone. The forest held more than just the lost ones. It harbored something more terrifying, something that tethered its existence to the shadows. What else had Claire unwittingly uncovered? Claire's heart raced, caught between fear and a fierce determination. She clutched Emma and Noah close, the three of them a fragile shield against the unseen dangers lingering in the dark. The grip of dread tightened around her throat as she could almost feel the earth shivering beneath them, alive with the presence of something sinister. "Jason!" she called again, her voice trembling in the damp air. No response. Only the rustle of leaves and the sighs of the trees, as if they were conspiring against her. The shadows shifted, morphing into grotesque shapes that threatened to break away from the dark depths. Was it her imagination? Or did the whispers seem to answer her, coaxing her to unravel the secrets buried under centuries of silence? "Mommy, I don't like it here." Noah's voice quivered, breaking her resolve. Claire turned, kneeling down to assure him, but her eyes caught movement just beyond the beam of her flashlight. A flicker, a glimpse of something darting away. Her heart sank. "Keep close, both of you," she ordered, forcing her voice to remain steady. They moved deeper into the underbrush, branches clawing at their faces like desperate hands. Every crack of a twig sent a jolt through her. The forest felt like a beast, breathing and watching, waiting for the right moment to pounce. Each time Claire shouted for Jason, her voice grew weaker. The chilling realization dawned on her it would only take a moment for him to vanish completely, swallowed by the forest. The air pressed against her chest. Each breath became a labor. Then they froze, all three of them, as a loud rustling from the underbrush knocked into the silence that enveloped them. Mommy, Emma whispered, her voice a fragile thread woven with fear. From the darkness emerged a figure, long and twisted. Claire's breath hitched in her throat. It stood there, obscured and shrouded in shadows, its face just out of sight. She could feel its gaze piercing through her, marking her a target. The whispers grew louder as if encouraging the creature, each voice urging it on. Jason. Claire's voice trembled, staving off the fear clawing at her sanity. No. The figure shook its head violently, a sound like gravel scraping against stone. Fear surged through her. It wasn't Jason. It was something worse. The realization clawed at her mind. They had been searching for Jason in a place where he might no longer exist. The creature stepped closer, and Claire and her children took a collective step back. It moved like smoke coiling in the air, and for an electric moment, she felt the chilling breath of despair wrap around her. From the dim light of her flashlight, she caught a glimpse of the figure's eyes, hungry, hollow, without a trace of humanity. And then it grinned, a twisted, elongated paper-thin smile spreading wider than any mouth should be capable of. Follow it rasped, and just as quickly as it appeared, it melted back into the shadows. The whispers swallowed the forest whole, echoing the word, reverberating in her mind. Momum. Noah whimpered, the fear freezing him in place. Run. Claire shouted, fear overtaking her. With desperate urgency, she grabbed both children and pushed deeper into the utter darkness, sprinting past the haunting shadows that seemed determined to ensnare them. But as they dashed forward, a new sound filled the air, sharp and chilling, a chorus of screams. Were they real? Or were they just more echoes of Jason's voice, bouncing off the trees as they mocked her frantic mind? Claire felt the walls of the forest closing in, an oppressive presence suffocating her behind each turn. Jason! She screamed one last time, her heart tearing as they plunged into the abyss. And then silence fell like a heavy blanket. Just the rustle of leaves and the faintest whisper of her children drawing shaky breaths. Mommy, what do we do now? Noah's voice cracked. Claire had no answer. She could feel it, the forest thrumming with something waiting, watching, craving. What if Jason had become part of it? What if they were now entwined in the same fate? The woods twisted. Further around them, shadows rising and dancing, beckoning them into the heart of darkness. They were not just searching for Jason anymore. They were running from a force they could barely understand. But where would they go? What would happen if they ventured further? The secrets buried within the woods loomed heavier than ever, and all she could do was hope they wouldn't become another whispered story in the dark. Would they find a way out, or would they join the chorus of the lost? The forest hung heavy, its silence an ominous companion. Claire held Emma and Noah tightly, feeling their little bodies trembling against her. The air was thick, bordering on suffocating, and a chill seeped into her bones. She could almost hear the woods breathing a deep, guttural sound that seemed to respond to their fear. Every leaf rustle and branch snap felt like a warning. Mommy? Emma stuttered, her voice barely above a whisper. Claire squeezed her daughter's hand, searching the shadows for movement. Stay close, she whispered back, but her heart raced. Those twisted shadows danced at the edges of her vision. They were alive with secrets, alive with something sinister. As they moved deeper, the space around them shifted. The trees seemed to lean in, their gnarled branches forming menacing silhouettes that closed in like a trap. Claire's breathing quickened. Why hadn't Jason come back? Was the creature still watching them? Then she heard breathing. It was low, ragged, much like her own. She froze, scanning the darkness, seeking the source. Jason, she called, more a plea than a question. Suddenly, the whispering returned, swirling around them, a cacophony of soft voices urging her onward. Claire felt panic gnawing at her insides. "We have to keep moving," she said, urging the children forward. Each step felt weighed down by dread, the whispers propelling them toward an unknown fate. The ground beneath their feet felt wrong, squishing and shifting as if it had come alive. Every crackle of twigs sounded like bones breaking. Claire felt the pull of the forest around them, trying to ensnare them in its dark embrace. "Mom, I can't," Noah whimpered as he stumbled, his small frame tiring. "Just a little further, honey," Claire said, trying to stay calm for their sake. But she felt her strength waning, the darkness pressing down around them. The cries grew louder in her mind. Were they the trapped pleading for release? Or were they something worse, hungry for new souls? Out of nowhere came a blinding flash, carving through the darkness. Claire shielded her eyes, and when the light faded, something was standing there, a figure more substantial than the shadows. This one had a shape, a twisted, grotesque form that resembled a fallen tree. Legs so thin they seemed to scrape the ground. "Children come play," the voice echoed, deep and resonant, both inviting and terrifying, masking a hunger that seemed to stretch for miles. Fear paralyzed Claire as she dared not breathe, paralyzed by the reality that whatever this thing was, it wasn't human. "Run!" she screamed, instinctively grabbing the children and fleeing. Branches whipped against her face, clawing at her skin as if they were trying to pull her back. Noah cried out, his small hand slipping from hers as he stumbled on the uneven ground. Claire's heart lurched. She turned, fear constricting her chest as she snatched him up and didn't look back. The screams echoed again, now merging with their own panic. "Follow it," beckoned once more, haunting and chilling. Her thoughts raced. Was Jason beyond the vision of the creature, or had he vanished into the whispers of the lost? They burst into a small clearing. The moonlight illuminated a crumbling stone pedestal in the center, covered in moss and vines. Something glinted on it, a relic, a token of the past. "Look," Emma pointed, her eyes wide. Claire's gut twisted. Should they approach it? The air thickened, the whispers intensified. She could see shapes shifting, closing in on them. Dash or delve deeper? The decision weighed heavily as time ran out. "Stay back," Claire hissed. They were perilously close to something ancient and dark. This could lead to their rescue or final doom. Would the relic reveal the answers they desperately sought, or only serve as bait to lure them into the darkness that thrummed with life? "Mommy, please," Noah cried out, shaking her arm. "What do we do?" Claire's heart raced as the shadows began to swirl, threatening to swallow them whole. As the air grew thick and oppressive, Claire felt the forest pulse. Whatever lay ahead would change everything. Would they step into the light or become lost forever? And just as the shadows reached for them, the ground beneath their feet opened wide. Would they leap into the unknown or be consumed by the forest's insatiable grip? The darkness enveloped them, swallowing the sound of their frantic heartbeats. Claire barely had time to react as the ground yawned beneath her, a gaping maw that threatened to consume them. She instinctively lunged backwards, pulling Emma and Noah close, their bodies trembling like leaves in a storm. "I can't let go," she screamed, panic clawing at her throat. Thunderous whispers churned around them, rising to a crescendo, urging them to jump, to submit. But all she could feel was the biting cold of the earth beneath their feet, yearning to claim them. "No!" Emma shrieked, her eyes round and wild. "I don't want to fall. Just hold on," Claire shouted, her voice cracking as she fought against the pull of the abyss. It felt alive, throbbing with a sinister heartbeat that matched the pulse of the forest around them. Through the chaos, an image flash flickered in her mind, the relic, the glimmering object atop the pedestal. Was it a trap or salvation? The thought lured her, but the shadows chattered vehemently, dissuading her from taking any risk. Suddenly, a jagged branch flared from the darkness, snatching at the air like a desperate hand. Claire recoiled, but not fast enough. It slashed her arm. Searing pain shot through her, breathing life into her fear as she stumbled back. A trickle of warmth began to flow down her wrist. Mommy! Noah reached out, but she was too consumed with dread to feel anything but the dark presence looming close. They were teetering on the edge of reality and nightmare. The ground was alive, reaching up to wrap around them like a lover's embrace. Yet it was wickedly intent on pulling them down to their doom. Run! Claire finally managed to scream, teeth clenched, lungs burning. With one final surge of adrenaline, she yanked the children away from the abyss, bolting toward the stone pedestal, its mossy surface beckoning them. As they stumbled ahead, branches whipped at their backs, grasping, clawing as if the forest itself resented their escape. Each stride felt like wading through molasses, dread hanging on their shoulders, dragging them back. They reached the pedestal, Claire barely able to comprehend the shimmering object. It was a small, silver pendant, intricately designed with an image that spoke of nature but twisted into something grotesque. "What is it, Mommy?" Emma whispered, her voice shaking. "I don't know," Claire replied, breathless. Instinct told her it was something powerful. "Or dangerous. Take it," Noah pleaded. His small hands trembled with fear. The shadows loomed close, a dark wave threatening to crash over them. Claire hesitated, but the whispering voices began rising once more, this time quieter and more coaxing. "They promise safety, escape. If you want to leave, take it," they breathed. Clara's heart raced, her mind running wild with fragmented thoughts. Would taking it free them or doom them forever? The air thickened as an unseen force pushed against her, something old and powerful that demanded her submission. Then, as if sensing her uncertainty, the whispers flickered to life with malevolent glee. "Children, come play," the voice echoed once again, deep and inviting, drawing her ever closer to that horrid urge. Screams of other children tumbled through the air, haunting and echoing. What had happened to Jason? Was he lured like the others? Did that pendant hold the key to everything? Or was it merely bait to attract new victims? With the shadows suffocating, Claire made her choice while feeling the pulse of terror growing stronger. She snatched the pendant and clasped it tightly. Would this act be her salvation or her death sentence? And as the very ground beneath them convulsed with rage, the pendant began to glow. A blinding light pulses from her hand, and suddenly, the forest fell silent. What had they awakened? Would the light protect them or unleash greater horrors? The light poured forth, brightening the clearing and momentarily dispelling the shadows that clawed at their ankles. Claire shielded her eyes but felt a raw, electric thrill coursing through her veins. She looked at her children. Emma's face was illuminated with curiosity, while Noah clung to her leg, fear pinching his features. Nothing moved in the forest. The wind stilled, and the whispered voices retreated, leaving only a low hum vibrating around them. But the quiet wasn't comforting. It felt like the calm before a storm, a silence thick with impending doom. "What did we do?" Claire murmured, her heart racing as she held the pendant tightly. It felt warm against her skin, alive, as if it contained a pulse of its own. For a fleeting moment, she prayed that they had pierced the darkness. Maybe the pendant was a beacon, a lifeline. As she lowered her hands, however, the shadows at the edges of the clearing began to shift once more. It started as a slow crawl, a slithering movement like snakes across the ground. Then, like a tidal wave, they surged forward, merging into a solid form. Clara's breath caught as she recognized its features, that twisted visage of a child, hollow eyes peering out, a mouth stretched wide, devoid of sound yet filled with malice. "They're here," Emma whispered, her body trembling. Before Claire could react, the entity lunged at them. It was fast, too fast. The moment she moved to protect her children, the light from the pendant flickered, uncertain yet fierce. The entity paused, its featureless face shifting, undecided. Then, with a snarling rush, it surged again. "Stay behind me!" Claire shouted, her heart in her throat. She raised the pendant, its glow pulsing rhythmically, illuminating a wide arc around them. Yet the creature didn't back down. It seemed drawn to the light, hunger glistening in its eyeless expression. Claire could see its hunger was insatiable. It craved fear, despair, Aggregate breaths filled the air around them. She could sense the weight of every heart thudding in unison. The shadows, emboldened, began to materialize around the pedestal like black mist rising from the ground, encircling them. "Mommy," Noah whimpered, his small hands squeezing her leg, knuckles white. Claire felt a desperation rising within her. Could her instincts protect her children? Did she have the strength to fight against something so wickedly powerful? "Emma," she said, voice steadier than she felt, "you have to hold on to your brother. No matter what happens, don't let go." Emma nodded, determination flaring even as her eyes shimmered with tears. With a sudden sweep, the creature lunged. Claire thrust the pendant forward, feeling a surge of energy ripple from it. The light roared back to life, pushing against the creature that recoiled, letting out a bone-chilling wail. But the shadows weren't finished. They writhed and twisted, seeming to plot a new course around the glowing boundary. A cacophony of whispers erupted once again, a terrifying mantra echoing, join us, fighting against the panic." Claire felt a flicker of resolve. If the pendant was a weapon, could it also be a conduit? "Hold hands," she yelled suddenly, urgency slicing through the chaos. The children obeyed, fingers lacing together with fear-fueled determination. And then Claire closed her eyes, summoning everything she had as she began to chant the shadowed words hidden deep within her mind. With every syllable, she could feel the ground beginning to tremble. The air crackled with tension. "What are you doing?" Emma asked, breaking the trance. "I'm trying to, but it was too late." The forest erupted once more, shadows swirling chaotically around them, the strange entity giving a discordant shriek. Claire opened her eyes, and horror flooded her as they found themselves no longer in the clearing but standing in another world, an eerie reflection of the forest but twisted, grotesque. "Where are we?" Noah screamed, as the shadows thickened, ready to wrap around them. Every breath felt heavy with malice. The pendant dimmed, and her heart dropped. What had she done? As eerie laughter filled the air, Claire realized they had just walked deeper into the nightmare. Was there any way back? Or had they traded one terror for something worse? With dread curling in her stomach, she gritted her teeth and whispered, "Stay close," but the forest seemed to echo with uncertainty. Who would come and pick them up from this darkness? And as a chilling breeze whispered through the trees, a deadly calm washed over her, echoing a question that would haunt them. What would they have to sacrifice to escape this eternal prison? The air was thick, oppressive. Claire squinted against the dim light of the pendant, trying to make sense of the twisted forest around them. Gnarled trees clawed at the sky, their bark twisted and blackened, as if charred by a flame that had never existed. The shadows seemed alive, heaving and pulsating, breathing in sync with the dread settling in the pit of her stomach. "Mom?" Emma's whisper broke through the heavy silence. "What is this place?" Claire wanted to assure her daughter that everything would be okay, but the tightness in her throat betrayed her. They had crossed into a realm she couldn't explain. The echoes of unseen laughter bounced off the twisted trees, grating against her nerves. "I don't know, sweetheart," she said carefully, her heart pounding louder than the whispers surrounding them. "But we need to find a way out." Noah squeezed Emma's hand even tighter, trembling beside her. Left alone with this dread, Claire felt the weight of responsibility press down like a suffocating shroud. "Let South stay close," she urged, stepping forward, heart thudding. The darkness seemed to shift, and in that moment, Claire registered a flicker, a glint of light deeper within the shadowy maze. It drew her in, a siren call cutting through the anxiety. Maybe there's a way back, she thought, hope mingling with fear. But as they moved ahead, the forest whispered their names. Claire, Emma, Noah. The voices rose then dipped, a sinister melody laced with malice. It echoed in her mind, the rhythm full of dread. The children halted, eyes wide. "Mom, I don't like this," Noah whimpered. "Neither do I, but we're going to be okay," Claire said, forcing a steadiness into her voice. "Just keep moving." As they pressed on, the air grew colder, chilling her bones. The light from the pendant sputtered dimly, flickering like a heartbeat on the verge of stopping. Just then, a shadow darted from the corner of her eye. Claire turned, feeling the hair on the back of her neck prickle. What was that? Something moved. Emma cried, her body trembling. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the dense gloom, a tall, horrific silhouette, its limbs elongated, twisting at odd angles. Hunched forward, it had a ghastly resemblance to a human but walked with a predatory grace, as if it fed off their terror. Claire's heart raced as she instinctively stepped in front of her children, the pendant's dim light barely holding the creature at bay. The figure stopped, its featureless face tilting as if assessing them. Claire's chest tightened with a surge of panic. It stepped closer, shadows swirling around it like fog. "Join us," it rasped, an echo that sent ice coursing through her veins. "No!" Claire shouted, her voice raw with fear. The creature recoiled, its form twisting, as if grappling with their light. But the power of the pendant was draining fast. "Mom, what do we do?" Noah cried, his small body shivering. "Hold on to me," Claire yelled. "Don't let go." They huddled together, her arms encircling them, and she focused on the pendant, willing it to shine brighter. Uncertainty gnawed at her. Was this the last flicker of hope, or simply an invitation to the darkness lurking beyond? The shadows thickened, bending and curling like hungry tendrils reaching out for them. "What do you want?" Claire screamed into the suffocating night. "Join us," it echoed again, and this time, the shadows surged like an angry tide, fighting against the fragile barrier of light. Claire felt the energy from the pendant beginning to falter, the glow dimming far too swiftly. Just as despair threatened to take hold, a piercing scream erupted from the depths of the forest, shattering the moment. It was a sound full of agony and desperation, vibrating through the air as though someone, or something, had lost everything. It cut through the tension around them. "Mom, what was that?" Emma whispered. Claire stilled, heart pounding. Dark figures began to emerge from the trees, whispering distorted words, and she realized they weren't alone. The forest, with its suffocating dread, held witnesses to their fate. "Run!" she yelled suddenly, tearing away from the shadows chasing them. The children stumbled after her, fear twisting their features. But as they fled deeper into darkness, Claire couldn't shake the feeling that they were heading straight toward something far more sinister. Did the forest want them to flee, or was it guiding them to an even darker truth? The air thickened with chilling laughter once again, as they ran, blurring past the trees that twisted and reached. And somewhere behind them, the echoes whispered as if each was waiting for their moment. Join us, what awaited them in the depths of this terrible labyrinth? Claire didn't want to find out, but there was no turning back now. They had already crossed a line, and the true horror was yet to come. Branches whipped at Claire's face as she tore through the twisted trees. The pendant sputtered above them, its light dimming with every frantic step they took. Behind them, the abyss seemed to roar, echoing with that dreadful chant, an evil crooning that seeped into her bones. Join us, each word dripped with a callous mockery that sent shivers down her spine. "Keep running. Don't look back," Claire shouted, adrenaline pumping as she felt the tug of the children clutching her hands. Each stride felt heavy. Time slipped away, tangled in the shadows. Noah stumbled, gasping. "Mom, I can't focus." "Noah, just a bit further." Emma's breath hitched, her small body trembling. "What if it catches us?" Claire didn't answer. A chill gripped her heart. She could sense the entity lurking just behind them, its claws reaching out for her children. She pushed forward, her mind racing even faster than her legs. There has to be a way out, and then, amidst the shadows, something glittered. A glimmer caught her eye. A path? Or perhaps just another trick of the darkness. But hope flared inside her chest, urging her forward. "Over there," she yelled, darting toward the faint illumination as they sprinted. The laughter changed pitch, a cacophony of despair that clawed at their sanity. The shadows thickened. Voices swirled around them like a storm, wrapping them in a blanket of terror. Join us, a sudden cold breeze raced past her, and Claire froze for an instant, her instincts screaming to turn. But the children were already moving, rooting her to the spot. The pendant flickered again, casting a brief glow that made the darkness flinch. Claire fought to breathe, urging herself to trust that fleeting light. They reached what appeared to be a clearing, a small glen bathed in unnatural moonlight, where the shadows hesitated. The air felt alive, crackling with anticipation. In the middle stood an ancient stone monolith, worn and warped like the trees surrounding it. Claire's heart sank. Something sacred? Or something sinister? "Mom! Look!" Noah cried, pointing to the stone. A carved face leered back at them, eyes hollow, mouth grotesquely twisted into a grin, as if it could devour them whole. "Stay behind me," Claire warned, clutching the pendant tightly. An instinct told her to turn back, yet she felt compelled to step closer to the stone. Drawn by a force she didn't understand, a cold, frightening curiosity. "No, don't," Emma whisper-shouted, stumbling back. But Claire felt it, the pull. The shadows converged, darkness slithering toward the monolith as if whispering promises. "Join us," echoed, growing louder, resonating with the thud of her heartbeat. "No," Claire screamed, spinning back to the kids. "Get away from it." As she took a step, the pendant's light flared to life, illuminating a path leading deeper into the forest. It instinctively drew her, a beacon amidst the encroaching darkness. "Run." She didn't have to tell them twice this time. They bolted, ignoring the inky tendrils reaching for them. Claire stumbled, glancing back at the monolith where shadows coiled. It wasn't over. The darkness lurked, relentless, wheeling after them. With each step, the whispers transformed into anguished wails. The forest was alive with tormented souls. Faces materialized in the shadows, contorted in pain, haunted, pleading. Claire's breath hitched, panic rising. How many had been here before? How many victims had lost their way? Was this the forest's curse, wrapping around her like a sinuous vine? "Mom, I can't see," Noah cried out, fear cracking his voice as the light flickered again, threatening to plunge them into the abyss. "Hold on, just hold on." Claire felt tears brimming in her eyes, the weight of despair pressing down. Suddenly, the pendant soared into the air, breaking free from her grasp, its light shooting outward like a million fireflies. It illuminated a vast, convoluted river of shadows winding before them, a narrow escape, shimmering with haunted memories. "Go, go," Claire commanded, her voice breaking through the chaos. They dashed onto the path, but she could feel something still pursuing them, something insatiable closing in. As they crossed the threshold of light, a deafening roar erupted behind them, the whispers crescendoing into a furious howl. "Join us." And then silence. An eerie, suffocating silence that pressed down hard. The forest fell still, almost expectant. Claire looked back, breathless. Had they escaped, or had they merely passed to another part of this sinister realm? The dreadful stillness followed them, wrapping around their hearts like a waiting predator. But the forest hadn't forgotten. "Join us," echoed softly again, and Claire suddenly realized with cold dread. Somewhere, something was still watching, biding its time. So much darkness surrounded them. But would the light guide them home, or would it lead them further into despair? What new horrors awaited them just beyond the next bend? Claire could only shudder at the thought. The silence bore down on them, heavy and thick, suffocating. Claire glanced around, her heart racing as she strained to hear the slightest sound, anything but the stifling quiet. Emma clutched her arm, her small body quaking. Noah, still reeling from the panic, fought to catch his breath. "Where are we?" Emma whispered, her wide eyes scanning the darkness that seemed to stretch infinitely. Claire wanted to say, "We're safe now," but uncertainty gnawed at her. She felt the presence of the forest shifting, almost alive. The pendant flickered hesitantly, the light dim and uncertain, pulsing like a heartbeat ready to fade. "Listen," Claire urged, her voice tight. "We need to keep moving." Without another word, they ventured deeper into the unervingly serene woods. The air felt electric, charged with anticipation. Each footfall absorbed into the damp earth, swallowed by the overgrown underbrush. As they trudged forward, an unsettling thought crept into Claire's mind. Had they truly left the darkness behind? Or was it simply waiting, lurking in the corners of her vision? She felt every shadow trailing them, whispering secrets soaked in agony. Join us. The pendant, now nearly extinguished, gleamed weakly in response to her fears. It seemed to sense her thoughts, trembling as if aware of the watching eyes hidden among the shadows. Suddenly, the forest erupted with a cacophony of rustling leaves, snapping branches, a violent roar that shattered the calm silence. Claire spun around, fear flooding her veins again. "Run!" she shouted, pushing her children ahead of her. They didn't hesitate, taking off down the path, the only thing left illuminated by the pendant's dying light. But as they sped through the trees, the shadows elongated and converged behind them, a swirling mass of darkness determined to catch its prey. Claire felt it rise and fall like a wave, relentless and overpowering. Her breath quickened, her lungs burning as she forced her legs to move faster. "Faster! We have to find a way out!" Claire screamed, desperation edging into her voice. They reached a small, crumbling structure, an abandoned cabin standing hunched and twisted, dark timbers intertwined with creeping vines. The door hung crooked on its hinges, a black void waiting to swallow them whole. "Mom! No!" Emma wailed, tugging at Claire's sleeve. "This could be a place to hide," Claire said, urging them toward the entrance. But a distant howling sparked her doubt. The shadows raced closer, eager to reclaim their warmth. "No, please, let us just keep going," Noah cried, his voice cracking. Claire paused, glancing over her shoulder. The shadows were upon them, pouring forth like a malevolent wave. "All right, we'll just take a quick look," she said, her heart pounding. The children reluctantly followed her inside, and she slammed the door shut behind them. The interior was suffocating, a chilling dampness that smelled of decay and despair. Flickering light revealed dusty furniture shrouded in ghostly sheets. Cobwebs hung from the corners like fingers waiting to grab hold. "Maybe we can lock it," Claire began. But a sudden thud on the door sent an icy shock through her. The sound echoed, vibrating in the void. "What was that?" she shrieked, backing into the room as terror gripped her. "Mom, I don't want to die," Noah sobbed, breathing hard as panic washed over him. "Shoo, we need to be quiet," Claire hissed, glancing around frantically. An icy draft swooshed through the cracks, rattling the walls. Shadows undulated outside, fingers of darkness probing the gaps. Desperately, Claire searched for something, anything to barricade the door. She stumbled upon a small table, pushing it toward the entrance just as another pound shook the cabin. "Keep quiet," she hissed again, her voice trembling. The whispers returned, floating through the door like a poison mist. Join us, join us." It was closer now, breathing, rhythmic. Claire's heart raced. They were not alone. The darkness had followed them inside. Scrambling, she turned to her children, instinctively seeking solace in their presence. "Hold on tight," she murmured. "Whatever happens, don't let go." In that moment, amidst the chilling whispers and the sinister grip of the shadows, Claire understood the horrifying truth. There was no safety here. Outside, something clawed at the door, hungry for release, intent on devouring them. What horrors lay just beyond the threshold? Would they find escape, or would the cabin seal their fates forever? The air thickened with dread as Claire realized their greatest challenge was still ahead. Claire's heart thundered in her chest as she pressed her back against the cold, damp wall of the cabin, holding her breath. The whispers grew louder, a suffocating symphony beckoning from just outside the door. Shadows slipped through the cracks and pooled around the room, dark tendrils inching closer, hungry and alive. "Mom, I'm scared." Emma's voice trembled, her small frame pressed tightly against Noah. "Shoo," Claire whispered as she summoned every ounce of courage. They were trapped in a nightmare, but she was determined to protect her children. Panic bubbled within her, but she couldn't let it show. "We'll be okay." Suddenly, the door shuddered violently. The sound echoed, a frightening reminder of the horrors just beyond. Claire's grip tightened on the table, the shaky wood offering little comfort. "What do we do, Mommy?" Noah whimpered, his voice quaking. "Hold on to each other," she instructed, eyes darting around the dim room, searching for salvation. Somewhere, she had read about ancient relics having powers, about light banishing darkness. The pendant. She reached for it, sensing its warmth flickering faintly in her palm. The whispers crescendoed outside, a teasing crescendo of anguish. Join us, join us." Claire felt the shadows dance around her legs like cold water, sloshing and swirling with intent. Could the pendant save them? With determination flooding her veins, Claire held it high. "Light," she called, channeling all her will into the pendant. The room dimmed, the shadows closing in, but the pendant began to glow, a soft, radiant light spilling forth. "Stay back," she shouted, the light pushing back against the encroaching darkness. The whispers grew frantic, turning to shrieks. Claire realized the shadows were afraid, and with that thought, she drew deeper into the wellsprings of courage. "You want tea, take us." Suddenly, something crashed against the door again, shaking its old hinges. "Mom, please," Emma cried, her wide eyes a mirror of Clara's fear. "Believe in the light," Claire shouted, placing herself squarely in front of her children. She felt the pendant's warmth surge, and a beam shot forth, illuminating the center of the room. As the light pulsed, she whispered, "Together." The shadows recoiled, twisting like serpents, and with that, Claire took a step forward. The children flanked her, knuckles white around each other's hands. The shadows writhed, inching back as if recoiling from it. "Join us," they hissed, but Claire stood firm. "No, we are not yours to take." Claire felt the willpower thrumming through her veins, igniting something within her. This was their moment. They had to push through. The cabin shuddered, and the whispers intensified into desperate wails. "Join us! Join us!" they clamored, but the light was more powerful, washing over them in waves. Shadows darted away, but they couldn't escape the intensity of the glow. "Mom, it's working," Noah cheered, the light brightening around them. Claire turned toward her children, their faces filled with determination. Together they called out, "We will not join you." The shadows shrieked, a collective roar that rattled the very foundation of the cabin. In that fleeting moment, Claire could sense a shift. The darkness trembled, vulnerable for the first time. Seizing the opportunity, Claire stepped further into the light, abandoning any fear that clung to her. She understood now the pendant was a bridge, not just a talisman. It channeled strength, not just from her, but from the heartbeat of love that anchored them together, families standing united. Then, the ground beneath her began to tremble violently, cracks splitting the floor. Claire sensed the shadows panic. They were losing power. "Come on," she urged, her voice unwavering. "Let us go." Panic turned to exhilaration as Claire, Emma, and Noah darted toward the front door. The shadows lashed out, desperation clawing at them. But Clara's heart thrummed with newfound strength, the pendant pulsing brighter than ever in defiance. With one collective shove, they burst through the door. The forest was washed in shimmering light. Magnificent brilliance cascaded over the landscape, illuminating the gnarled trees and displacing the shadows that had oppressed them for so long. Claire felt the warmth of safe ground beneath her feet, the air changing from choking tightness to a breathing sense of familiarity. The whispering was gone, replaced by a gentle breeze. They turned together, looking back at the cabin as it fell away into the distance. The shadows hissed, retreating into the seams of the forest. "We did it. We're free," Emma shouted, her face glistening with relief and joy. Noah bounced around, screaming with laughter as the pent-up fear finally released. "Mommy, we're alive." Claire pulled them close, laughter mingling with tears. "We're together and we're safe. Nothing can take that away." With the forest now glowing under the warmth of dawn, Claire revealed the pendant, now transformed into a radiant beacon. "We'll carry this with us as a reminder," she said, feeling a flutter of hope as they walked hand in hand. The forest no longer felt threatening. It stood now as a guardian, alive with life and promise. There would be no more lost ones, Claire vowed. They took one last look before delving into the lighter part of the forest, leaving the shadows behind. They had fought the darkness. They had found their way home. Now, before you leave, listen up. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel, so you don't miss out on the next exclusive stories that'll send chills down your spine. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and help us grow. We need you to flood the comments section with your reactions. Your thoughts, what do you think happened to Jason? Who are the lost ones? And you must share this video with at least 5 friends who absolutely need to see this thrilling conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to show your support. You're all the heart of our channel.